Hello. So for those of you who are going to be watching the recording, I apologise. You can skip this bit as per normal. I'm fiddling, and I'm fiddling because I want to just double check. I seem to have a bit of a frog in my throat at the moment, so I do apologise for that. So yeah, I'm just fiddling, and I thought I'd come on a little bit early so that gives people an opportunity to see that we are live and that it's happening. And hopefully we'll get some people coming on in the next couple of minutes as we start the question time, because it seems like quite some time since I've done one, but it's probably just over a week actually. Last week I had the full intentions of bringing you confidence question time from Rome, and having an amazing time in Rome. If you've never been to the beautiful city that is Rome, I highly recommend it. I'm not on commission from the city of Rome, but it is beautiful in so many different ways, and the people are fantastic. So hi to the first viewer. Do pop in and say hi, or just give thumbs up or shares or whatever it may be. It'd be great. But it's nice to be able to give people a shout out as they join. And it's also really interesting for me because I can see out the corner of my eye. I've got the I've got my iPad on basically, so I can see that this is running, this is working. But what's interesting is I get to see the just how much of a time delay, and that's what I wanted to do. Hi Alex, yes, I kind of went to the Vatican, not for a huge amount of time. I actually found the way that they choose to show you around the Vatican I didn't particularly enjoy, because it felt a bit like being herded like cattle. So went and spent some time in the Sistine Chapel, which was my aim. That's what I wanted to do. Even managed to find myself being stood right underneath the two finger points and hadn't even realised I was stood there, which was interesting in and of itself. So, as I say, I seem to have a bit of a frog in my throat. So I apologise for lots of throat clearing and drinking of tea and things like that this evening. But this evening, I have been. I had a message from somebody who has asked if we can look at a topic, because it's something that, for her in particular, it's something that's come up quite a lot. And it's something that's been hanging around for years, and it's something that she'd like to address and have a look at. So I thought we'd give it a go this evening. She's choosing to stay anonymous for her own reasons, which is absolutely fine. And I would invite you also to do the same. You know, if you watch these videos and you get value from them, then please do take the time to message me with any questions, insights, thoughts or comments, because if I can put it around a topic, then I will do, and do everything I can to bring some insight, bring some thoughts, different perspectives, and hopefully it will give you something else to work with. I think I ate my dinner too fast. That's what it was. So this particular person, what they were asking about is around that they have felt for years that there is something missing in their lives. Now, I've just been in Rome, as I've said. Part of the reason that I was in Rome was I was invited to deliver a workshop and also coach at a women's conference. And there was more than 700 women at this conference. And I had around about 100 people in the workshop that I ran, which is called The Truth About Confidence, 90-minute workshop. And what was interesting right from the offset when I started asking questions, now these are extremely high profile, highly educated, amazing women, absolutely amazing women. And these women, they're not stupid, they're not idiots, they're not uneducated, and not that that makes a difference. But when I started asking questions around, thank you for the love hearts and the likes, I do appreciate them. when I started asking them questions about their confidence and how they felt about themselves, you know, there wasn't a time really, other than the time delay of languages, because I don't know how many different nationalities I had in the room, that they would raise their hands about, that they felt the same way, that they were lacking confidence, or they doubted themselves, or they questioned themselves a number of times. And to me, this question that this particular person has asked us to look at this evening is very similar. And whilst the way it's been phrased may not immediately resonate with you, let me give you the number of different ways that I think that this shows up. So this particular person says that, and I'm looking down here because I've written it down, that they feel like something is missing in their life. Now, I know that some people think that they seem lost. They might dialogue it in that way. They've missed out, that they've not got enough, they're kind of stuck, or there's more to life. And there's so many different ways that it can be dialogued and that we can talk about it. But it's kind of like a longing, I think, is another way of looking at it, a longing for something else. So what I want to offer is kind of the first part of what I want to offer where this is concerned is to take some time and think about things for yourself. Now, our thinking brain, as far as I understand it, has this craving or need to not be in the present moment. And so therefore, to not be in the present moment, i.e. be here right now, it gets distracted, and it's either going to be focused in the past or the future, because it's constantly thinking about those things and flim-flamming, technical word, backwards and forwards between those two things very fast. And we may not even be aware that that's happening and that's what's going on. So that would be my first point, really, is to stop. When you have that thought that something is missing, when you have that sense or you perceive that something is missing in your life, is just stop and ask yourself something fairly simple, such as where is my focus right now? Or what specifically am I focusing on? Because my assumption is that quite often, not always, and I'm not saying that this is the immediate answer to your question, is that this thing gets lost, and it will be linking back either to the past, and it might be thinking, I've missed out on things. So I know that I spent a great deal of time thinking I'd missed out on things. You know, I missed out on my education. I didn't work particularly hard in school or for my A-levels, and I didn't go to university. So I missed out on those things, and I'm sure that I missed out on so many other opportunities that when I look back and I look with kind of like with those glasses on, is that I can look back and I can think that I've missed out on all of those things, and therefore I'm not where I should be right now, and therefore something is missing. Or it might be that I'm looking and longing for the past, you know, and I may have had particular connections with people or particular things happen in my life, be a certain way, look a certain way, that I'm longing for that, and therefore perceive that I'm missing those things from the past. Or it might be the flip side of that. It might be that I'm projecting into the future and thinking, well, if only I've got this, and if I can have that, then I'm going to be, I'm not going to feel this missing sensation. And this, unfortunately, is something that this thing between our ears, that's not our ears, that's what it does, is it's constantly looking from one thing to the other. I thought it might be Graham. Hi, Graham. Is it constantly flicks from one thing to the other. So my first invitation, before I want to look into that side of that sense of perceiving that something is missing in our lives, let me reiterate, this isn't just, I love the fact that Graham said just so me, and as I said, with these women at the conference at the weekend, last week, that I kept asking them questions and asking, when you work with me in a group and I ask you to raise your hands, it's not because I'm asking, it's not like an AA meeting kind of thing, but I think it works for two reasons. One, it's because it gets you to be honest with yourself, but two, when there's arms raised in the room, you can see that it's not just you. And that's why I invite you to comment down here underneath, or like or message me, because it's really important, not just for you, but for other people to realize it's not just them. You know, there are very few things in this world that we think we experience on our own, but as human beings, I've been doing this now for, oh wow, it'll be 11 years on Wednesday this week that I've been running this business. And I don't know how many hundreds of people I've interacted with. And I've been working for myself, on myself for probably nearly 20 years now. And I started to realize, you know, that there are so many common patterns, and this pattern of perceiving that something is missing is a common pattern. So please be aware of that. And the first port of call is to check in with yourself. Excuse me. Am I focusing on the past, or am I focusing on the future? Don't make it wrong when you have that awareness that could be what you're doing. Just bring your awareness to it. Just notice that's what's going on. And then what I would invite you to do is actually hit pause on that and start to ask yourself, okay, so what do I have right now? What do I have in my life right now? And it might be minimal things like I can see, or I can breathe, or I can walk, or I've got a roof over my head. It could be anything like that. I've got access to water. You know, how lucky are we that I can go and buy a bottle of water? How many thousands of millions probably of people in the world don't even access to clean water, and I just can go and buy a bottle? It's things like that. Now, I know that might seem a bit trite, but actually it helps your brain to bring it into the present moment. It helps your brain to realize what's going on right now, and kind of stop it from getting overwhelmed with either the past or the future, and flim-flamming, that technical term again, between those two things. I'm just reading here because I wrote a lot of things down earlier to do with this, because I do think it's a topic, and I'm just seeing Graham's comment here. Constant feelings of failure and having missed out, or I've tried things and failed. I'm not quite sure that that's where this particular person, this particular lady was asking about, Graham, but it is that the brain is constantly measuring, and that's why we need to bring it back to, and I know that we've spoken, and you've been on the videos live when we've spoken about, be with what you have right now. Where can I work from where I am right now? So my question to this particular person, I'm assuming that you're either on this live and choosing not to connect, which is absolutely fine, or you're going to be watching the recording. So I know that you know who you are, so I can ask this directly to you. And I also know that there are going to be people, whether it's Alex and Graham, and there's at least 5 people on this video at the moment as well. So how do you know that something is missing? What thoughts must you be having in order to think that something is missing? What thoughts? How do you know? And I know that may sound like an odd question, but it's really worth exploring. Now, I appreciate, and obviously it's a bit difficult when I haven't got more information, I appreciate that there may also be just this sense that something's missing, rather than it being just about thoughts of something missing. But I would always start with those things first, so that you can get clarity for yourself and bring yourself into the present moment with what's happening and what's going on. So because I don't fully know, and there are so many different exercises and things that I would, if I was coaching you one-to-one or even in a group, there are so many different kind of questions I would ask first to get clarification, that what I would then do is excuse me, I've got things popping on my screen, that I obviously I can't do that because you're not here at this moment in time. Well, you may be, but you're not on the bottom thing. You can tell I haven't done these for a while. I'm a little bit all over the place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some assumptions, and this is based on the work that I've done over the last decade with these various clients, but also with myself. And the first assumption is that maybe once you've asked that other question that I was asking you, you know, how do you know something's missing? Is that once you've got clarity there, if that doesn't give you guidance or insights or different thoughts, then it's to stop and to maybe ask yourself that or sit with the assumption, and this is my assumption, that somewhere you know something is missing. And that could be in your heart, it could be in your mind, it could be in your body, it could be in your soul, your spirit, whatever you want to call it, that something actually knows not only that something is missing, but actually what is missing. And again, this gets so caught up with trying to find a solution that it rarely gives us the space to actually look at what that is. So it will chuck out a statement such as something's missing in my life, and it will get so hooked up on that it won't give us a chance to look for clarification. And I'll reference again the week. I'm back. So I would yeah, that's where I was going with this. When the week that I've just had with in Rome, you know, these are busy women, and there were some very smart men there too, but busy women, you know, high profile jobs, lots of demands on their time, families, children, all sorts of things, colleagues, all sorts of things that they are juggling. And I heard a number of them, and in fact I've been going through feedback forms today from my workshop. And so many of them have said that even just taking an hour and a half out to learn some information, but have some space to reflect for themselves, such as through the confidence audit that I run, and to have that space for themselves, it really gave them a different perspective. And I wasn't coaching all 100 of them one-to-one because that would have been impossible. But they gave them that time. And so my invitation is that my assumption is that we all know way more than we give ourselves credit for. But we think that knowledge has to come from up here. Now, in my belief, there is a big difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is just information, facts, experience. But wisdom comes from that true experience. And the way that I would describe it is, there's a difference between reading a cookbook and then getting in the kitchen. Because when you've read the cookbook, you've just got the information. But to get in the kitchen, when you get in the kitchen, you've got to have those hands on. But then there's another depth to it of trusting yourself. Now, when you perceive that something is missing in your life, or you could have more, or could be doing more, is give yourself that space to just go, okay, so I'm telling myself that something is missing. How do I know that? Wait and see what unfolds from that. But then actually give yourself some space, whether it's you choose to meditate or luxuriate in a bath or go for a walk in nature or sit by the sea or go for a run or whatever gives you some space to just kind of unwind and actually get more into your body. So it might even be something like chucking on some music and flailing yourself around your living room. But giving yourself the opportunity to relax and ask yourself what that thing is that's missing, and do that thing. Go for that walk, go for the bike ride or the run or have the bath, and don't look for the answer. I know that may sound counterintuitive, but when you buy into the assumption, I know that something within me knows the answer to that question, but I'm just not going to search for it. You start to relax, and whatever that thing is that the brain perceives is missing gives the rest of the information, that wisdom, to start to come to that surface. I'm hoping this is making sense. Could you let me know, those of you that are watching live, if this is making sense for you? Because my assumption is that we do always know. So it's things like, well, actually, let me say the second bit, because I think actually, Alex, it will go on to kind of what you've put here, which is, I know I would have more if I weren't holding back. And I think that this is the key thing, is that when we perceive that something is missing, there is a part of us that knows what, that's my assumption, that there is a part of us that knows what that thing is, whatever it may be. However, this thing kicks in again and starts to put those fears in place, puts those doubts in place, and question ourselves, worry about things, stress about things, get tense about things. And it creates a resistance. And that resistance then starts to block us from accessing that thing that we think is missing again. And in actual fact, when we can face that fear and recognize that there are so many things in life that we want to do and can do, but when we let that resistance get in the way, it's going to block us. It's going to stop us from doing things. Just pause for one moment. I'm going to stop this because I've got this going on at the side and I'm wondering whether that's causing problems with my connection. So when you have that awareness, of that something is missing, and you take those 2 bits of exploration that I've offered to start to find it, what you might notice is that, yeah, well, I know what's missing, I need to do, or I need to get, or I need to have, or however it shows up. But there's a resistance, there's a tension, there's a stress, a doubt, whatever it may be, to that thing, and there's a discomfort there. Now, the best illustration that I could think of to share with you on this is around when I was working as a stage manager. I worked in TV and theatre around the UK, and I did that for quite a number of years, 10 years in fact. 10 seems to be a decade, seems to be a kind of significant thing for me, I don't know why. And I knew after 7 years of doing that something was missing. I knew something was missing in my life. And if you'd have asked me at that time, I could pretty much guarantee that I would have said, I don't know what's missing, but something is missing. And I probably would have said, then I'm sure that there's more to life than this. That's kind of how I probably would have spoken about it. I should be doing more was probably what I should have said, or I would have said rather. I should be doing more, I should have more, I've missed out on stuff. And there was, even though I probably would have said that I don't know what it is that I want to do, which I didn't, but I knew that where I was at, that this wasn't the right place for me anymore. So whilst I didn't know what the thing was really that was missing, I knew the resistance, I could feel the resistance. And this was after 7 years of working in theatre. And it took me another 3 years to actually follow on and it took for things to get uncomfortable for me in my life and in my work for me to finally go, that's it, I'm out. And I just handed my notice in and I left, and I had no job to go to. I had no plans. I didn't even have let alone a plan. I had no savings. I had no backup. I had nothing, and I wouldn't recommend that be the way to do things. But I'd known that 7 years ago, and if I had, even though I had resistance to it, even though I'd been fearful, if I'd have just taken the courage to think, okay, I don't have to do it now, but what could I do to get into preparation? If I genuinely know that the thing that's missing is outside of theatre, outside of TV, then even though I didn't know what that thing was, I could have made preparations, I could have saved, I couldn't have done any other training because the way that the hours worked, it didn't allow you to do that. But I could have done something in preparation, and that's the thing that I think that we end up resisting so often, is that we do know what that thing is that's missing, even though if we don't specifically know what it is. I don't know if that makes sense. But what I mean is in the theatre, as I knew that wasn't where my life was meant to be anymore. Nothing wrong with it. It's a great environment to work in if that's where you want to work. But I knew I had reached my end point with it. But my resistance kept me in there, kept me safe, perceived safe, actually got worse rather than safe, to stay in there, to avoid doing that thing. And then it took me another 3 years. And life became really bad before it finally catapulted me out of that system. And then I had to kind of flounder and find my way. Is this Is this does this make sense to people? Is this helping? Alex says yes, makes a lot of sense, says Graham. Spiritual stuff, Jules, lovely. And a cheeky little spiritual warrior, really, Graham. I think sometimes we keep hankering after this pivotal moment, this light bulb moment, or this, thunderbolt's going to happen and everything's going to change, or someone's going to turn up and go, here you go, this is the answer to your life. Well, in my experience, that doesn't happen. Well, it does happen, but extremely rarely. And for the majority of people that I am aware that that's happened to, they've had to face something very significant in their life. I'm talking about near-death experiences, or severe illnesses, or things like that that have just not been brilliant, and I wouldn't wish those on anybody. So for me, what I would offer, specifically to the lady who asked for me to talk about this evening, who I know wants to remain nameless, M, I'll just call you M, is that start with that first point, M, and ask yourself, how do I know that something's missing? How do I know that something's missing? What am I saying up here? What thoughts am I having up here that tells me that something is missing? And just notice what comes up there. Then my second offering would be for you to give yourself some space, and whether that is going for a run, having a bike ride, having a bath, dancing around. For me, I personally, unless you meditate, I personally would suggest to do something that moves your body in a way that lights you up, whatever that may be. Could be anything, but going and being in nature, whatever it may be, just move your body in that way that's going to be helpful, resourceful and useful for you. And then start to ask yourself from that place, okay, what is the thing that I think is missing? And just notice what comes up, and you might get a vision, you might get an idea, you might get a thought, you might get nothing. All of the above is great and fine and is there for a purpose. So don't try and force anything, and don't expect it to happen immediately. Just notice what does happen. And then from that place, once you've got either of those two in place, notice what resistance comes up. What resistance is there? Or you might not notice the word resistance. It might be discomfort, or it might be fear. And one of the things that I find interesting with fear is people say, "Oh, I'm really afraid of." It's like, okay, well, how? How are you afraid of that? What are you making it into? I'm afraid. I've got a fear of failure. Okay, well, what do you think will happen if you fail? It's all of those kinds of things, and going into depths, and obviously with the time frame that I have at this moment in time, it's and not knowing specifically where else you would like me to go with this, M. I'm hoping that this is of value to you. I hope this gives you some guidance and some answers. And it's not always easy. Like people have this assumption that life is meant to be easy and simple, and it's not always. Sometimes it's complicated, sometimes it's messy, sometimes it's uncomfortable, but that doesn't make it wrong. I know that all of what I've experienced, all of the greatness that I've experienced has usually come out of some pretty uncomfortable situations. So now when life offers me something that's a discomfort, takes me out of that comfort zone, or rather the known zone, is I go, okay, I may not like this, but I'm sure I'll handle it, and I'm sure I'll find a way, and I'm sure that you'll find a way too, with starting to explore what you perceive is missing. And one of the things I would like to leave you with this evening, because we're fast running out of time. What does somebody do with the time when we're on these? Is, and whilst I'm just going to waffle here for a little while, I am going to say something extremely profound, is if you have got any questions or thoughts on what I've said so far, then please do chuck it in the box below. Graham, as always, you're wonderfully vocal and it's great to have you here. So Graham says, you always say the right thing for me when I need it, and that you'll repeat that sentence all week. How do I, make sure you put it in the first person, Graham. How do I know that something is missing? It's not helpful if we put it in third person. So I'll give you some time to type for anybody who wants to comment on what we've shared so far, or if you have another question that's sparked out of this conversation. But I want to offer you kind of two things. One is an echo, and I can't remember which confidence question time I spoke about this before, but it's a reminder that unless our life is in danger, and I do mean physically in danger in this moment, then any fear that we're experiencing is psychological. And I'm not saying that it doesn't feel real, because of course it can feel extremely real, but it's psychological. It's made up. It's in our thoughts, and those two different fears are different. That primal fear of my life is in danger, or that psychological fear, which is something which is constructed. And it's really important that we look at those and face into those fears. And the other thing that I want to share with you is a reminder of that somebody has said to me on a number of occasions, which is around that sometimes to experience the thing that we think is missing, we need to empty our cup, she says, having nearly emptied her cup. Because when we've got an empty vessel, when this is empty, we can then fill it. And the universe abhors a space, abhors a vacuum. So it will fill it. It will fill it with opportunities or conversations or books or an insight or a movie and a comment. It could fill it with anything that can give you a guidance, direction, thoughts, inspiration, motivation, whatever your word may be, towards what you perceive is missing. So I think I've waffled enough to give you enough time to type, and there doesn't seem to be any other comments or questions coming in at the moment. So please do share this with people. Please invite them to the Confidence Garden page. And also remember that, as far as I'm aware, for the month of October, unless something drastically changes, there is no change to the schedule. It will be Monday nights, 7 p.m. UK, right here on this page, having this conversation. And I really want to invite you to ask what it is that you want to know. This is about you. This isn't about my agenda behind this, as I've said on a number of occasions, is to do what I can to support people from where they're at, and share any insights or thoughts that I may have. I'm no guru. I have studied stuff. I've gone through some stuff for myself. And if there's anything that I can say or offer as a suggestion or ask a question that might spark something for you, then I'm more than happy to do that. There are only 6 places left for the Truth About Confidence, which is happening in York on the 16th of October. And you can go to www.thetruthAboutConfidence.com. Thank you for all the loves and hearts. And those 6 places, you can find them there and book your place. It is the last live event of this year. And we haven't yet scheduled for next year. My thoughts are that there's not going to be anything until around about March. So due to work schedules. So if that's the case, then bearing in mind that that's 5-6 months away, do you really want to wait that amount of time to do something different for yourself? You know, you can take the content from the 16th of October and, you know, use your time over the Christmas period, for example, and really get yourself ready so that 2017 can be the year that you live in a different way with confidence. Truthfully, none of the faking stuff. This isn't about whooping it up and pumping the air and that kind of stuff. I'm not belittling it, but I have a very different approach. That's why I call it the Truth About Confidence. So that's the last event of this year, but we will be on here. I will be on here. I say we because I'm hoping that you're going to join me as well. On the, what is the date today? So the 10th of October, which is next Monday at 7 p.m. UK time. If you have a question, you can either bob it below the video, or you can hit the send me a message on Facebook, or you can email me, jules@juleswyman.com. And if you haven't been to the website, juleswyman.com, then head over there as well, because you've got the 7 Keys of Confidence, which you can download for free. I think I've said all my notices. I think I've waffled enough to give any of you who want to have the time to type something that you can. Just so that you know, I cannot see who is on this. So when you do the thumbs up and things like that, I can't see who does that. So I can't give you a shout out, but I want you to know that I really do appreciate you showing up, you being here. And I really hope that you have found this evening of value and that you've got something you can take away from it. So thank you very much. Please share, and I look forward to seeing you next Monday, 10th of October, 7 p.m. UK, right here on this page. Take care. Bye.